Now, live with Greg Olson, Director of the New York State Office for the Aging.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you all had a great holiday and a happy 25 to everybody. Really excited about this program. Really important to us here. It's going to be important to you as well, all your friends and families. It's really not designed specifically for an age group, although we focus on older adults here. But before we begin, what we'd like you to do is like us on Facebook. And, you know, I met somebody yesterday, Nashima Scott from the city of Albany, who came up with a really great idea. And so I want to kind of promote this, something we could all do together in 2025 and think about having watch parties. She's with the city of Albany and was considering having a watch party today. And if that's something that folks seem to be interested, we can move this to 12:30 right after a lunch to have in a library or a senior center or a congregate meal site. So I just want to point that out and want to thank Nashima for that idea. So older adults every year annually lose $28 billion to financial fraud and scams. It's an enormous amount of money. Not only is the toll financially enormous, but so is the emotional toll. Depression, anxiety, potentially not being able to live independently, having your sense of security compromised, your goodwill exploited. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Are scammers sophisticated? Yeah, you bet they are. But it's not that complicated in how you can prevent yourself from being scammed in the first place. And if you are, what to do in the event that you are. And it's not something you should be embarrassed about. And again, that's what we're going to really focus on today. Scams are consistently evolving, especially with the advent of new technologies and artificial intelligence. We call that AI. This means being even more vigilant and avoid acting immediately whenever you receive a call or a text or an email or a notice requesting payment. Places like the IRS, Social Security, your local tax departments. This is what all scammers do, and they pressure you to act immediately and not think about what you're doing. But please don't do that. Ignore the call or email. Don't pick up the phone, even if you recognize it's from the same area code. And never click a link that you get in your text, in your email. So to help catch us up to speed are two really good friends that have really devoted their lives, not only to law enforcement, but now this issue, which is elder abuse in all its forms and financial fraud and scams. First is Dan Lyon and Justin McCabe. They're both with Lifespan of Greater Rochester. Both have extensive law enforcement experience. You might recognize Dan if he pulled you over in Monroe County when he was a traffic cop. And Justin was an investigator, still is an investigator, but just doing something a little different. So thank you both so much for being here. And I've had the privilege of joining Dan and his colleagues at Lifespan a couple of months ago. And what we wanted to do is create a series of very easy videos on a variety of different scams that are pretty popular right now and how you can avoid becoming a victim of a scam. I would be remiss if I didn't call out my good friend, the CEO of Lifespan, Anne Marie Cook. Hope she's watching today, but if not, she's dedicated her life at Lifespan, not only to serving older adults in and around the greater Rochester area and many of the counties that surround, but has really been a leader in elder abuse in all its forms. So keep watching today because we're going to show you one of these videos. They're short, but they're really impactful and very educational. So again, welcome Dan and welcome Justin, and thanks for coming back. I think this is the second time we've done this, and these are messages that we got to continuously get out to people because things are rapidly evolving, but the ways to protect yourself stay consistent, frankly. So let me start with both of you. And, you know, Dan, I'll start with you because you're on the right of my screen. Tell me a little bit about your background, and then we'll flip it over to Justin to do the same.
Worked as a road patrol deputy for just shy of 24 years with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And during that period of time in the Sheriff's Office, for a few of those years, I was a crime prevention deputy. So I was out in the community doing presentations for all walks of life, all age groups. And Now, currently at Lifespan, I'm the fraud scam program manager, and I work specifically now with the older adult crowd, which is those 60 and over typically.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Justin?
So my name is Justin McCabe, like Greg said. I was, prior to here, as a police officer. I worked road patrol. Also was a criminal investigator with New York State. And I did a lot of work with frauds and forgeries of New York State identity documents.
Yeah, so I mean, amazing background. So how did you get into this, and what do you do specifically at Lifespan to try to get the word out, and any other things that you want to share?
Well, I work specifically helping older adults where we find someone who's called our office here at Lifespan. We're more than willing to certainly try and secure their identity, try and minimize their losses if they've lost money. And we certainly do our best to secure their identity by, going to identitytheft.gov, the Federal Trade Commission, IC3, certainly utilizing the credit bureaus to make sure that they don't lose any more money. And of course, we work in conjunction with your local police departments. So wherever they happen to live, we make sure we put them in touch with their local police officer, as we're going to need a crime report from that local police agency.
Justin, anything to add from you?
What we, like Dan said, our job is two parts. We do case management, where if you're a victim of a scam, we'll walk you through every step to try and help lock down your identity. We also do presentations throughout New York State for older adults. Our presentations are free. And we go over, we have 5 different versions of our presentation, but we'll go over every step of the scam, the different scams we see, and then prevention techniques that you can use to prevent a large majority of losses to scams.
And that's perfect. I mean, that's really a great segue in. So, there's some complicated language that you guys use just because you do this every day. So now let's really dig down. What are some of the examples of some of the most common scams that you have seen or are seeing now, and can walk folks through those?
The imposter scams are always on the forefront. They're always right at the top of the list. If you go to no other website that we would ever speak of, I'd certainly tell anyone, go to the Federal Trade Commission.gov, FTC.gov, and join their listserv. As you'll find, if you review any particular one state and they break it down by state, what they're seeing, imposter scams is leading the pack, along with tech scams. But there's always that man or woman trying to pretend they're someone else. And it could be the grandparent, it could be the Social Security Administration, or even the IRS. And of course, they're looking for money.
Right. And AI makes that so much easier. I remember there was a Senate hearing, and one of the senators, when they opened up the hearing, the AI, it sounded exactly like him, the senator from Connecticut. What are some other scams? Because we did a whole variety of videos prior to the holidays, and the holidays really had nothing to do with it. But there were a bunch of others too, and I guarantee you people are getting the same things that I am, like the Postal Service scam, for example.
Yeah, the Postal Service scam is a big one. Usually, like Dan said, the imposter, but they can be an imposter for anybody. It could be a bank. It could be a large company. Amazon is a big one. Any place that has a large customer base, and because it gives the scammers lots of potential victims. And you're absolutely right with the AI now. We're seeing voice cloning scams. At the higher end scams, they are doing some deep fakes, which is basically like a voice cloning, only they do a video where you can't, it's not the actual person you're watching. It's a video of someone, but you can't tell the difference between whether it's actually them or not. The other thing we're seeing them do a lot, in the past, one of the big things, because a large percentage of the scammers are outside the country, most of them, their first language is not English. So you could always look for grammatical errors in text. The problem is now with things like ChatGPT and the different AI programs, the large language models, they're running their scripts through there to make it more proficient English, so you can't pick up on them. They're also using it to help give them ideas of new types of scams they can come up with.
Winning is certainly always also at the top of the list. That winning may be some type of lottery scam. I've had 2 in the last 2 weeks. A person getting contacted by someone claiming to be from the Publishers Clearinghouse. That always seems to be a popular scam tactic is using Publishers Clearinghouse, claiming that the person has won some type of prize, whether it be a car or money. And of course, in order to receive said prize and or money, this man or woman is going to now be responsible to pay the taxes and fees, of course, up front. And that is an absolute red flag that something is amiss. You do not pay taxes and fees in order to receive a prize. And those taxes and fees are often paid in a format that is always red flags for scamming. And that, of course, is cash, gift cards, cryptocurrency, wire transfers, and certainly peer-to-peer payments such as Venmo and PayPal.
Yeah, and I guess I'm showing my age because I remember Publishers Clearinghouse, and maybe some younger folks who are watching this have never heard of that before, but that was a big deal. And I know that the three of us, as much as AI and ChatGPT are helping scammers do their jobs better, there's also those tools that the three of us are starting to evaluate that can identify those types of messages to determine whether they may not be a scam, but a red flag for sure. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, because we spent a lot of time on this, is what government agencies will and will not do, like Social Security, like the IRS, et cetera. So talk a little bit about that, because this population, right, is going to be getting, we're going into tax season. Probably the majority are on Social Security. Many are on Medicare. What is government never going to ask somebody?
I'll take that, Greg. Certainly no federal government agency, such as the Social Security Administration or the IRS or even Medicare, are calling you directly at your house on your personal phone. So anytime, and these men or women that scam are absolute professionals and very crafty, as you alluded to earlier. They're very capable of spoofing area codes and certainly spoofing phone numbers to make their phone calls look legitimate upon the caller ID on the phone. So I will always make sure that to know that, the IRS, Social Security Administration, they're not calling you. If these agencies, federal government agencies, are looking to contact you, it will always be via something in the mail. You're going to need to go to your mailbox and find a letter and open it up. But they're not certainly calling you over the phone.
Right. I think when we did our video series, we were talking about, you guys were mentioning to me a new one you had seen, and these were election fraud, right? Raising money from bogus Republican accounts or Democratic accounts. Let's talk a little bit about what we've seen just in New York, but what's going on nationally. Last year in New York, we had hurricane, we had tornadoes, we had extreme heat, you have snow. Now we got the LA wildfires. And what I'm getting to here is charity scams. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so some great websites we'll send people to, charitywatch.org. There's a lot of charity watchdogs that you can go in and type in any charity you can think of, and it'll tell you if the charity is a legitimate one, or if, do they have all their 501c3 paperwork filed correctly. You want to go big with a charity, either go big or go local, somewhere where you can see a person face to face. Most of your large organizations have a location that you can actually go to. The other thing we'll mention is people coming door to door. If a person comes to your door and is trying to sell you a charity, you can listen to them, hear everything they've got to say, and it's fine. If you want to give to that charity, mail a check or go drop it off, but don't give that person at the door cash or a check. There's just been so much fraud with door-to-door attempts with charities that we've seen.
So there's a variety of different kinds. You guys have materials, and we're going to put up where you can find those. We've developed a scam guide. Alex, if you just want to pull that up real quickly. We talked about how sophisticated scammers are, but you have taught me that it's not that difficult to prevent yourself from being scammed to begin with. So walk through some of those things, because I think when a lot of people don't understand what AI is, what ChatGPT is, how all of these things work, but it's not as complicated as one might think to not get in this situation to begin with.
So some of the things we'll tell people as prevention techniques. paying attention to the way that they're asking for their money. Like Dan mentioned, asking for gift cards. There's never a time a gift card is a legitimate method of payment. I don't care who it is, government. If you hear gift card as a method of payment, it is always a scam. Never putting cash in the mail. That's a big one. Realize that when you insure a package, if you put cash in there, it's not covered. Like Dan mentioned, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, these are apps you put on your phone, you attach to your bank account, and it'll send it to the scammer. Wire transfers, be very cautious when you're wire transferring. All these methods are ways where you will lose your money completely, where law enforcement isn't going to be able to recall it. The money will just be gone. Some of the other things we'll tell people often is we say be the referee, but what we mean by that is if someone calls you and say they're from your bank, hang up the phone, pull out your bank card, and call them back. Always make sure whenever you're verifying personal information or you're talking to anybody on the phone about a financial matter, you made the call yourself. This way you always know who you're speaking with. And you had mentioned ChatGPT. You're absolutely right. I've done it several times. If you get like an email, you can copy and paste the email right into ChatGPT or any other large language model and just say, I think this might be a scam. What red flags do you see? And it will lay out if there is any red flags, anything that you should be cautious of that can help. So as much as you mentioned the AI, the scammers are using the AI, we can use it too as beneficial to prevent scams.
To always take a minute to take a breath, wait, just taking a quick step back and reviewing the information being asked of you or what you're being told to do before you click anything within text messages and or emails will save many a person aggravation down the road. And when it comes to the cell phones, I've been to so many presentations with older adults. In the day back, not too long ago, maybe people didn't have the possession of cell phones. Now everyone has possessions of cell phones in their hands. That means you have technology at your whim to use at your disposal to work for you. This is an administrative assistant, the cell phone. Let it work for you. Be mindful that the person calling you, whomever it may be, if he or she or the business calling your phone is not saved within your contact list, within your said phone, you simply don't answer the call. Always allow voicemail to answer it. Be mindful. You can listen to that voice recording message. If it is someone you actually do know, you can call them back 10 seconds later after they leave the message. No harm, no foul. But if they're not saved in your contact list, the business isn't in your contact list, do not answer the phone. That will avert many of an issue with these scam artists.
Right, and that's so simple to do, right? If you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. If it's somebody you know, they're going to leave a message. You get a text message with a link in it. You don't hit the link. You get an email with the link in it. You don't hit the link. And I'll just give folks here 2 examples of, and again, because you guys have taught me as well. One thing that happened to me, there's a credit union here that I belong to called SEFQ. And I had something where they were trying to get personal information from me. And I had pulled over and, again, thanks to you guys, I called them back and they said it's an absolute scam. Now, prior to that, a couple months, they had been bought out by Broadview. So that's why I called. But I probably wouldn't have done that because it looks so real. But then here's how crazy things can get. During the pandemic, a woman from Vermont had gone to her winter place in Florida. She had gotten a text with my name in it, and she was older. So she looked me up. I'm legitimate, right? Greg Olson, Director of the Office for Aging. She clicked the link, and her whole phone was taken by the scammer. So it's those types of really low-level things. So now let's talk about, and I want Alex to make sure we got all the info in the lower third there. There's a lot we can do to prevent, and prevention is great, but some people are going to fall through the cracks, unfortunately. As firmly as you can, please tell folks why they must report it and where they go to do that.
So the first thing you're going to want to do is call the police. You call your local 911, have an officer come to your door, tell them what happened. they can file a police report for you. That police report signifies you as now a fraud victim, which many of the laws require a police report. The next thing I would say to do is contacting your bank. If your bank's involved in the scam, let's say you gave out your debit card number or some information was leaked on it, call your bank. They're very, very helpful. They deal with this every day. They can help lock down your account, make sure that, get you new card numbers. Now, with the local police report, there's two places in government you'd report. You'd report it to the local and state level, which would be your local police department. The next one's going to be the federal level. The law enforcement agency for the federal government in charge of scams is the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. So it's very simple. You go to identitytheft.gov. You fill out what's called an identity theft affidavit. It's very easy. It's a little wizard. It says what happened, who they say they were, how did you pay them, what bank accounts did they ask for. You then sign that under penalty of perjury. So it's an actual affidavit. You print a copy of that out as well as the police report. You make a ton of copies and you send them out to everybody you have a financial relationship with. From your gas and electric company to your bank. Many of the laws require for the financial institutions to lock down your information further once they realize that you're a victim of identity theft. The next step we would usually tell people to do, because many times these scammers will, they'll try and get you to willingly give them money under a fake guise or a con. Next, they're going to try and apply for things in your name. That's where the identity theft portion comes in. So where we intercede with that is the credit bureaus, because no one will give a scammer any debt in your name unless they can pull your credit report. So there's two options with that. You can place a fraud alert, which is good for a year. You just call one of the credit bureaus. You tell them what happened. Basically, when, let's say, visa.com gets an application in your name, they're going to pull your credit report. The top is going to say this person's a victim of identity theft. Please call them at this number, and it'll be whatever number you give them when you file the fraud alert. They're going to call that number and say, hey, did you put this application? Is this you? If not, they can pull it as fraud. If we really know, if you called us and we really know your identity's highly compromised, we would suggest a credit freeze. What a credit freeze does is you call the 3 credit bureaus and they will lock down your information completely. They will not release a credit report to you or to anyone else. So no one can commit identity theft as far as fraudulent debt at that point. And it's an on-off switch, so you can shut it off. For instance, I keep mine frozen all the time. And if I want to apply for a car loan tomorrow, I call them up, I shut it off, I apply for the car loan, I turn it back on. Those are pretty much the main steps we would have any victim take to lock it down. The next step, if you are a victim, there is the Office of Victim Services. I'll let Dan mention about that.
And certainly pulling of a credit report, Greg, is important also. It's something else we'll do at the very beginning is we pull that man or woman's credit report. Oftentimes, these people have never had a credit report pulled for whatever reason themselves personally. Maybe if they got a loan way back in the day, the dealership pulled their credit report, but they themselves have never pulled one and physically reviewed their own credit report. And that is vitally important to ensure that your credit report is 100% accurate with your credentials and your credentials only. Anything that is certainly askew, or an address, for instance, listed that you never lived at, that needs to be disputed with whatever credit agency you had your report pulled from. Example, you pull from TransUnion, you see an address on there in Rochester, New York, you've never lived at. A simple 2-sentence letter to TransUnion, along with a photocopy of your driver's license, sent off to TransUnion and ask them, please redact that from my credit report. This keeps your credit report accurate. And when reviewing credit reports, we're looking for something that is amiss. So what I mean by that is if we're seeing, inquiries, soft inquiries is not of concern. That means they're pulling credit lines on institutions you already currently do business with. You have an account with Chase Bank. You see Chase Bank pulled your credit report. That's only to ensure that whatever credit line they're offering you, they continue to offer you. But when you pull your credit report and you see a hard inquiry on said report, and that hard inquiry is coming from a credit card you are not in possession of, that's a problem. That means someone has your credentials and are trying to pull a credit report with a credit, trying to get credit under that company or that agency using your identity. And that's a problem.
And what happens a lot of times is when these scammers steal your information, say it's a data leak, and they get a hold of your name, your social security number, everything else. Let's say they go to visa.com and apply for a credit card. Well, they're putting your date of birth, your social security, but they're going to put their address and their phone number so that the Visa will contact them. Well, when they put their address on there, that will show up as an unusual address on your credit report. So that's one of the reasons where we recommend to pull that credit report, like Dan mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, as you talked about freezing your credit, and I'm not trying to sell a product here, but I bought LifeLock. And I get those alerts, and I've had to do that because I had 5 attempts to try to take out a credit card, or it was a credit card in my name, exactly as you described. So I did exactly what you just said, and it's completely stopped since I've been able to do that. So it's really important. So there's also what's in New York State, the Office of Victim Services. There's funds for New York State victims. What's the maximum allowable compensation for a fraud victim? And I will say that as part of the governor's State of the State address, they're looking to actually increase the amount that fraud and scam victims get in the state budget this year.
That is fantastic news. And Justin and I, as well as many advocates around the state of New York that do victim advocacy, are certainly looking to have the amount of money returned to a victim increased. Here's what the current monies happens to be. A victim of a fraud or scam, let's say a man or a woman is speaking with a scammer on the phone, and they're asked to go buy gift cards. And they bought 5 gift cards at one location. First thing we're going to need is a police report from your local police agency. Those 5 gift cards are my proof. If we can still get the copies of the receipts, that victim is eligible for a $100 reimbursement from the New York State Office of Victim Services with a copy of a police report in hand that shows they are a victim of a crime. Because they bought 5 gift cards at one location, that's one incident. So they're only eligible for $100. Let's change the incident. Instead of 5 gift cards at one location, they purchased 5 gift cards at 5 different stores. Often that is the case because scammers want to make sure that the clerk behind the counter selling you a gift card doesn't ask you, what are you doing when you're buying 5 gift cards at $500 a piece or spending $2,500? Because the victim bought 5 gift cards at 5 locations, now they are eligible for $100 per incident because we have 5 stores, that's 5 incidences. Maximum allowable amount in New York State is $2,500. What does that mean? That means the victim, working in conjunction with the local police department and your victim advocate, like what Justin, myself, and Sheila do for Lifespan, are certainly capable of getting upwards of 25 claims completed, each one potentially worth $100. So potentially the maximum amount is $2,500. If the person does a wire transfer, that wire transfer is for $10,000, but they only did one wire transfer, they're only eligible for $100.
Wow.
And that's the rules that we're currently working with.
Well, let's hope that we can change those rules. And for anybody out there that might go into a pharmacy and buy gift cards, there's a reason why you're signing off, or you have, hopefully an educated clerk that will ask exactly the question, who are you buying these for? So in the fall, we drove out to our friends here in Rochester because, sometimes it's a lot easier to hear things than it is to read it in text. And we developed, like I said, a series of videos that you'll get the link from our site. I believe it's on Lifespan's site as well. But we've heard a lot about gift cards. Let's take a look at this. Do you know how to spot a scam? You have to look for some common red flags, including how the scammer asks for payment. Hi, my name is Greg Olson, and I'm the director of the New York State Office for Aging.
And I'm Dan Lyon of the Fraud Scam Program manager at Lifespan of Greater Rochester. Scammers often give themselves away by the type of payment they'll ask for. They'll insist upon cash, gift cards, bank and or wire transfers, peer-to-peer payments such as Venmo and PayPal, Bitcoin and or cryptocurrency.
But don't worry if you don't know how to do these types of transactions. A scammer will gladly hold your hand and walk you through the process of completing a transaction while on the phone with you. And that's when you know it's time to hang up, because you're giving away personal information and you will be scammed.
Scammers are smart. Be smarter. And if you lost money, call 911 to report to your local police department.
Or visit our website in the New York State Office for Aging social media for more resources to become scam smart and learn the steps that you can take to recover from a scam. Wow, who is that man in the Foster Grants right there, huh? But very short, right? Here's how you prevent it. Here's what you do. So we have a bunch of those types of videos that I just think are highly effective. So I can't thank the two of you and Anne-Marie enough for working with us on doing that. Let's talk about some resources. You guys did something quite unique, which is to develop or launch a peer-to-peer support group that is available free of charge to anyone in New York State. I think this is fantastic. Talk about that a little.
We have a program here at Lifespan. There's three of us that run our fraud scam department, and I'm very happy and pleased to have a coordinator working on in my department. Her name is Sheila Brewer Montero, and she is currently running our fraud network. That fraud network is a peer-to-peer support group. It's the first in New York State that we're aware of, and certainly being facilitated by her, with a background in facilitation of peer-to-peer support groups. That is going to be meeting every Tuesday at 10 a.m. You could join via a simple phone call. You could join online. Your identity is 100% protected. You can join this group and stay 100% anonymous. No one needs to know your identity. It is absolutely free of charge, and it's just 1 hour out of every week on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. with Sheila facilitating this. We just did this first one here this last Tuesday, and unbeknownst to me, as I was working with a volunteer just this last week, the volunteer, while at my presentation, asked if she could speak to my group real quick. She said this, I was not ready for this. She said, I was part of that peer-to-peer support group, as she's talking to a group of people that I was in front of here in Rochester. And she was very kind with her words and said how much she was able to glean from that peer-to-peer support group and what it meant for her to discuss the situation that she was involved with in that group session with Sheila. And, I always like to say, when it comes to advertising, not having to pay for it is the best type of advertising, word of mouth advertising. And that certainly nailed it. It tells me that we're doing a good thing, and we are offering a service to people free of charge. All they got to do is log on, call in, or certainly we can put you in touch with Sheila to be part of that program. You do not need to be a New York State resident.
No, it's open to anybody in the U.S.
I think that is just fantastic. There's nothing better than peer-to-peer. And there's also nothing better than someone joining a group where you often feel like, I'm an idiot, I was the only one. And that's just not the case. That's the whole point of today, is this stuff is complicated and sophisticated, and you're not the only one. So one of the things I'm most proud of in my job is we've launched since 2018, 29 public-private partnerships with tech companies. And what better to test some of these things than with you guys? And one of them, we did two of them out there, including, enhancement of the bill payer program and the financial payer program. One is Fraud Finder, the other is EverSafe. And EverSafe was designed by one of our friends, right, and her partner, Liz Lowy, who used to be in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Talk a little bit about EverSafe and what it does.
So EverSafe is a program. Currently, if you're referred by Lifespan, the state will pay for one for a year. It's basically a program that you link your bank accounts with it, and it will look at different red flags of scams. maybe gift cards being bought, different patterns that are going to signify the person that's using the account may be a victim of a fraud or a scam. And it will actually alert whoever you put on file to the fact that there are red flags of a scam, to help family members or the person just be aware that, hey, the person you're talking to on the phone, when you go to make that payment, it red flags as a scam. EverSafe will report it to you and let you know. And it just gives more financial security to older adults. It's very, very helpful. And like you mentioned, Liz was the Manhattan district attorney, and the founder of the company's mother was a victim of a scam. And so it's just a great resource to help people prevent scams.
And that resource, is available to an individual free of charge currently through the Lifespan promo. So if they were to call EverSafe, make sure you tell that person to call Dan, not someone that I'm friends with at EverSafe. I've known him, I've dealt with him, I've worked with him. Call Dan, tell him Lifespan is sending you over there, and you'll get the free 1-year subscription for free. That is paid for through New York State because New York State vetted EverSafe only if they worked in conjunction with Lifespan, because both EverSafe and Lifespan are statewide known agencies doing good things for people.
And I appreciate the shameless plug. New York State is the New York State Office for Aging. So we appreciate that. And you're right about, I didn't want to mention Dan because I didn't want to bring his story, but his scam, his mom was scammed $180,000, and it started with a car warranty scam, and she didn't have a car. And one of the things, also proposed in the state of the state, and, a friend of mine was telling me his experience with his mom is how difficult it is to get out of, certain types of arrangements, like your cable bill, other things that you've subscribed to. And so there's going to be an effort again in this budget cycle, hopefully with the legislature, to make it much easier, because that's a different type of fraud and scam, but it is one through legitimate companies who make it difficult for you to cancel subscriptions and other things, et cetera. What other resources would you recommend, whether it be through your website or other things, where an older adult can learn how to protect themselves? And I will say this extraordinarily strongly. We focus a lot here on older adults, but we cover a lot of issues that it doesn't matter how old you are. These tools and advice and guidance are going to matter regardless of age.
So the FTC has probably the largest amount of resources on scams. There's also the Department of Justice at ic3.gov, which basically tracks internet-related crimes, which would be your tech support scams, anything that involved the computer, but most scams all involve some type of electronic wire transfers or something along those lines. There's the identity theft resources. Is another website that is very, very helpful. The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, if you want to get free information pamphlets, paper pamphlets on scams that you can hand out if you work somewhere that works with older adults, they have a wealth that are all free. They will ship them right to your door. The other one is the New York State Attorney General's office. It has quite a bit of information on scams and identity theft protection.
You cannot beat the FTC.gov, Federal Trade Commission. I hate to harp on that, but I tell people the Federal Trade Commission is the consumer watchdog for every man or woman in the United States. They are, in fact, the reporting agency. And the reason you want to belong to the Federal Trade Commission is because you're going to get an email on a regular basis from them alerting you to what they're seeing that's going on around the country. And just because it's not happening in your backyard or within your life right now, be mindful in another part of the country. Let's say, let's go out to Portland, Oregon, and they're seeing a specific set of scams going on out there, and they're using a specific tactic, which has now been reported, as we have finally been alerted by the local authorities out there and told that victim to report to the Federal Trade Commission. The Federal Trade Commission then puts it out on their website, which you are a part of. You know, and I know, just because it's happening in Portland, Oregon, it's only a matter of time before that particular scam that particular fraudulent activity is coming to a community closer to your neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great point. So, for those of you watching live or who will be watching in the future, you don't have to write all this stuff down. You can go to Lifespan's website. All of this material's there. You can go to our website, aging.ny.gov. That material is there. Check out the videos. Again, they're short, but they provide what these gentlemen have been talking about all day. How do you prevent, and then what do you do if somehow you're one of the ones that falls through the cracks? So I want to shift gears a little bit. We talk about the value of older New Yorkers every single day in our office. Volunteers are so critically important to their communities. To the 1 out of 7 jobs in New York State are not-for-profits. We have 900,000 volunteers providing 495 million hours of service at an economic value of $13.8 billion. Always looking for volunteers, whether it be in the Aging Network, whether it be at Lifespan, or any other not-for-profit. So please consider joining. It's a way to reduce your risk of dementia, to stay physically fit, cognitively fit, etc. Check this out. Well, again, I want to thank Dan and Justin. Now's the time where we get to hear from you. So here's a question from Mr. Eric Jacobson. My daughter, sorry, my glasses, I can't see very well. My daughter's high school sent a message to all parents. Scammers had been reaching out to parents saying that they had to pay more money to get their kids' SAT scores. I haven't heard that. What do you say about that?
Sounds like we need to call the school district personally and inquire a little bit more closely. Anytime I'm asked to do something in regards to paying, I'd even be interested to know how they're being asked to pay, because how they're being asked to pay will be the red flag giveaway as to whether or not this is legitimate and or not.
Great. Thanks for the question, Eric. What is the most common scam you've seen in the last year? So let's say 2024 going into now. And I'm going to follow that up with my own question because we kind of talked about this. What do you expect over the next couple of months?
Phishing scams are probably one of the biggest out there, where they send you a text message or an email purporting to be from a large company. I would say imposter scams, they top the list as the worst ones. The tech support scams have been out for a while. We've seen quite an uptick in those. During the election, there was a huge amount of political scams that were out there, just an imposter scam under a different name. I would say AI is going to just keep getting more and more intricate now that they're using the deep fakes. At one point, the deep fakes were at a very high technical level, so the everyday scammer didn't use them. Now they're more at the consumer level. Like the voice cloning is. So you're seeing more everyday scammers start using some of these technologies to just ramp it up even more. Coming close to, as we get closer to the summer, your vacation rental scams are going to be huge. And
QR codes is another one. We're seeing QR codes. QR codes could be out in the public place somewhere at, say, a parking meter, where you're asked to scan a QR code in order to pay for your parking meter. And the brushing scam, which is it's not totally new, but we're hearing more about it. I've seen it lately popping up on Facebook as a reminder as of late. The brushing scam kind of works with your parcel package scam, where you're receiving a package on your front doorstep, you open it up, and it's some type of item, which, let's say it's a decorative candle. It's something nice, but you have no idea who sent it. Within that package and that product that was sent to you is a QR code, and a little note says, if you wish to know who sent this to you, scan the QR code. And when you are scanning that QR code with your phone, guess who now has some information? Your information.
All right. Well, I'm always concerned, but now I'm really concerned, right? Because I have paid for parking with a QR code. Everybody's using QR codes now. You were telling me about this. Comes in an Amazon box. It doesn't have anybody's name on it. Is your advice to stay away from all QR codes? I mean, if you're in a restaurant, right? During COVID, there is no menu anymore. It's QR code.
You just got to be diligent, Greg.
How do you know though? So I was in a parking garage in Rochester, parking lot, and that was the way to pay for my parking.
And you want to think of a QR code like you would think of clicking a link, because really a QR code is just a code that sends you to a certain website. So the same thing, if you're not clicking links, again, if you're in a restaurant where you want to make sure that the actual QR code, like if I'm looking at a menu, I'm going to look at that QR code. Does it look like it's part of the menu? Did they put it on when they made it? Yes. If I get a random package in the mail, I'm definitely, just like if I get a random message from my bank and wants me to click a link, I'm not clicking it. I'll call the bank before I do that, or I'm logging into the bank account website. If you see, depending on the context, if there's a website associated with it, go to the physical website, look up, see if it's their policy to send out QR codes, call customer support and say, hey, I got a QR code with this package. Is this normal? And usually they'll be able to red flag you, because if a scam is being attempted on you, the likelihood is you are not the first person that's gotten it. So the companies will most likely be aware of it.
And like you said, Greg, you said you're in the city of Rochester or whatever city it may be, or town, district. It's not that hard to find a phone number for the government agency that you're currently in. So if I was in the city of Rochester, I could certainly go to rochestercity.gov, and I'm sure I could Google search on their website real quick, parking enforcement.
Yeah. I mean, it's stunning how fast, in all the examples you guys talked about, technology's changing. We assume as consumers, not doing what you guys do for a living, that it makes our lives faster and easier. And that's where the opportunity is, right? And so, I mean, what you're really saying is take nothing for granted, check everything, so you're not one of the older people that gets scammed out of $28 billion a year. And that little extra time to do that little extra work, even though it may not be convenient, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, the scammers take advantage of anything that's convenient for us. They, just like you said, when new technology comes out, they integrate right into it, and they will make it part of their scam. So sometimes you just have to put yourself in a little inconvenience, just a little bit. Make an extra call, go that extra step, especially when you're figuring the average scam loss is $33,000 according to the Department of Justice. For that little extra step, you could have just saved $33,000 or more money. It's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Dan Lyons, Justin McCabe, great having you back. We talk a lot about different content here. This is one of the topics that I don't care if the audience is like, well, we already heard that. There are things you got to hear over and over and over again. And I guarantee when we do this again later on in the year, there's going to be new things you're going to come up with. It's ever evolving. There's always the same messages, but then there's going to be new things that you're going to be able to provide. Both Dan and Justin had talked about the ability to reach out to them if you have group presentations that you want. That's what they do for a living, and they're more than willing to come out in person or virtually, I believe, to provide
absolutely
this exact type of programming. So please reach out to them. As always, I want to thank our communications team, Alex, Darren, and Roger, for making me look good and this entire production just off the charts. Our next show is going to be in a couple of weeks on Thursday, and it's a year in review, and we'll talk a little bit about what's in the New York State budget that's going to help older adults. So again, thank you for joining me. push this out through all of your channels, everybody, so we can get this to the masses. It's a huge issue where, prevention is the best medicine. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Live with Greg is a production of the New York State Office for the Aging Communications Bureau. Please join us next time.